What's up, my friend? Abby here, and welcome back to Ask Abby, where I answer your writing questions and help you make your story matter. Yes, I have bangs now, and that's gonna be like 50% of the comments. I actually cut them myself on a whim because I was bored with my hair. So hopefully you guys like them because you're gonna have to stare at them now for at least a little while. So it is NaNoWriMo, and I'm not doing NaNoWriMo, but I have been writing a lot lately and making more time to write, making more writing days in my schedule, which has been lovely. And I'm doing more Write With Me live streams this month. So I did one last Wednesday, but I'm also doing one this Saturday. So if you missed last Wednesday's writing session, you can join us this Saturday. We're gonna be doing another live writing session. Keep an eye out for that. And I'm gonna be doing one on the 30th of November as well. So lots of Write With Me's this month. I'm very excited for you guys to be making progress on your books for NaNoWriMo or whatever you're writing for NaNoWriMo. And I'm really excited to be making progress on my book and the co-write project that I'm working on with my sister. So I'm kind of have like two different works in progress going right now. I have the co-write project, and then I have the historical fiction mystery story that I made a Pinterest board for in this video. And I'm working on that one as well, but more slow paced when it comes to me. I've been really wanting to do some hardcore plotting on that, but I just haven't had much time because I have been working so much on publishing the Christmas book, which if you've been here for more than 5 minutes, you know all about the Christmas book sequel to 100 Days of Sunlight. I'm so excited to finally have it out there in the world, and I'm so thrilled with the response that it's been getting. You guys have been showing it so much love, and I so appreciate your kind words. I finally finished editing the audiobook. So the audiobook is finally finished and uploaded and ready to be distributed. I'm just waiting for quality control to approve it and send it off. And once they do that, unfortunately, Audible has really long delays usually, so I can't say when it actually will be available. Again, this seems to be a recurring theme. Okay, so that's my writing update. Comment below, tell me all about what you're working on. How's your novel coming if you're participating in NaNoWriMo or your story project, whatever you're working on. Comment below, tell me all about it, and let's get into today's questions. Why does your story matter? Good question. What if I told you that there's a science behind every great story? I don't just teach you how to write. I teach you how to change the world with your story and make your author dreams come true. In case you're new around here and you're not sure how this works, here's the deal. You ask me questions and I show up on YouTube once a month to answer those questions, and you can submit questions to the show 2 ways. The first way is to hit the join button below this video, get on the inside of the Writer's Life Wednesday community on YouTube, go to the community tab and post your question in a comment on the Ask Abby post. You will see it. And the second way is to go to patreon.com/Abby Emmons, get yourself inside the inner circle group there and post a question. Just make sure you hashtag it Ask Abby so that I see it. Okay, let's get to the questions. First question comes from Phil. Congratulations on publishing your second book. I see there's a 2-year gap between 100 Days of Sunlight and The Best Christmas Ever, yet a lot of authors say you have to publish regularly when self-publishing, or even one a month if you're publishing a series. I can see some pros to publishing close together / regularly, but is it really that important? What are your thoughts on this? That's a great question. I was a bit uncomfortable with the gap years that happened between 100 Days of Sunlight and The Best Christmas Ever, because I had this idea in my mind of, oh, I have to be publishing something every year as an indie author, or at least if it's going to be a sequel, like it absolutely has to be the next year. But I realized that these time constraints really do not matter to most readers. Okay, if they fall in love with characters from one book and you decide later to write a sequel or a sequel story or novella or short story, whatever it may be, and you know that you already have an audience who loves these characters, you can absolutely publish that other story whenever you want. Like, there does not have to be a rhyme or reason to when you publish it. As long as you still have this active reader fan base that love the first book, you can absolutely give them something else. Okay, they are hungry for something else, because you have to think about it like this. Even though it happened 2 years ago for me, okay, 100 Days of Sunlight was 2 years ago, which is unbelievable. It's not that case for all my readers. So a lot of readers are currently reading it for the first time. So they're experiencing it for the first time right now. So it's not a 2-year-old book to them. I never even pay attention to release dates of books unless it's something that hasn't come out yet. And I'm like, oh, I can't read that immediately. That's sad. So as an indie author, is it important to constantly be releasing things like every year, every month? Every month is like incredibly excessive. Like, you would have to have probably a personal assistant or several to even be able to handle the workload of releasing a new book every month. Like, I know some authors who do it, but I feel like they probably have a team or at least a few assistants helping them, because I cannot even understand how much work would go into releasing a book every single month. That is just so much content to create. But again, it depends on your situation and how much time goes into each work. For me, it's a pretty detailed process, and it's pretty much just me. So I have to take into account all of the time that will go into every step of the process. I didn't want to have to wait 2 years to publish something else, but 2020 happened, and we all know how that went. So it was a difficult year for creation and production, I think, for a lot of creatives, and I wasn't able to release anything sooner than that. But I'm glad that I waited, because this Christmas book might not have happened otherwise. Funny how that works out. But for myself and my own personal goals, going into the future, I want to publish something every year. And some years there may be more than one, because like I said, me and my sister are writing a co-write project series together, and that is going to be really exciting. So that will just kind of add to the books coming down the queue at you guys. But as a principle, I think for any indie author, what matters the most is that you have a community of readers who are excited about what you're writing, okay? And that doesn't have to be immediately ready for them to read. It can be something that you're working on, that you share behind the scenes looks at what you're doing. As long as they always feel connected with your work and updated, and they know that something is coming, you don't have to worry about every 6 months, I need a new book, or whatever the case may be. Get an understanding of what you can personally handle, okay? Taking into account everything else that you do for your business, for your career, for possibly another job that you also have. Take into account everything and all of the time that goes into actually producing a book and publishing it. And create a timeline, giving yourself enough room to breathe in that scenario. Yes, it's good to be consistent, but it's more important to have quality content that your readers love and to build a community around that. Next question is from Mary. Hey Abby and everyone, I had a good round of edits in my novel this week, and now the end is in sight. Do you have any recommendations for writing blurbs, like how long it should be, what elements to include, and how much of the plot to share? Thanks. So, you guys, if you know me, you know I've been talking about blurbs and how I want to give you a masterclass on writing blurbs, and that is still coming. Trust me, it is coming. I know it has been years since I first mentioned this, but I'm actually still perfecting the format for writing a blurb, and I've had more experience now, and it's exciting. But I will share a little bit of the formula that is kind of the starting point for this method of blurb writing. Typically, you want your blurb to be about 250 to 300 words long. You don't want to give away the whole plot, obviously, but you want to show your reader enough of the story that they have a clear image of what they're getting into, what the internal conflict of the main characters is, and why they should care about this story. Okay, so there are a few ways to do that, and basically the way that I recommend structuring your blurb is with 3 paragraphs and then a call to action at the end. So the first paragraph is shorter probably than the following 2 paragraphs. The first paragraph is your hook. So that is the main character's internal conflict. Okay, that's what I would recommend leading with. I would not recommend leading with anything about the world building or even the plot itself. I would recommend leading with what is the main character's deepest struggle and internal conflict that we are facing right out of the gate. That is what's going to pull your reader in and make them want to learn more. Okay, just like I talk about with the writing the hook of your book, the first few pages or the first chapter is you have to lead with, why does this matter? Okay, so that's paragraph 1, the hook. The second paragraph is the setup. So building from the beginning of the book to the inciting incident, where you're setting up the plot. Okay, you're setting up the premise of the story. Paragraph number 3 takes you all the way from the inciting incident to the game-changing midpoint and possibly beyond. Now, of course, you don't want the reader to know how the book ends because that would be spoilers, and you don't want to give any spoilers really in your blurb, but you have to give some spoilers because otherwise they won't know what it's about. Like, I've read so many blurbs that I'm like, I really don't even know what this book is about, and maybe I'd be interested in it if they gave me a little bit more information, but they're like so afraid of giving spoilers that they end up leaving off the table everything that was the juicy internal conflict that was going to pull me in. Oh, but I can't let you know about that because that's like the best part. Yeah, let me know about the best part, please, so that I can know if I like want it. I get it that you don't want to reveal too much. You don't want to spoil the ending, but you have to show us what are the stakes. Why do we care? I would err on the side of writing more information rather than less, and then taking out what your trusted beta readers, book blurb beta readers tell you is maybe too much. So yeah, that's basically the structure of the blurb. There's the hook, the setup, the conflict, and then the call to action. And there's so much more to talk about with writing blurbs as far as like power words, emotional words, balancing the internal conflict with the external conflict and making sure that you are including enough of each and not giving too much away. And there's just so much to talk about. So I'm going to save a lot of this for the masterclass, which I'll let you guys know when it's ready. Again, I'm sorry it's taking so long, but it's coming. Okay, next question is from Rebecca. I'm almost done with my first manuscript of my first novel, but I'm struggling with writing certain tragic scenes. I have always felt awkward with writing tragedy and writing the emotions that go along with it, but the scene that I am writing is a pivotal moment for my characters and the story itself. What advice would you give or resources would you recommend for writing scenes of a tragic or emotional nature? I want to express the characters' feelings appropriately without overdoing it. Thanks. Emotional scenes. Ooh, tragedy. Tragic scenes can be very difficult to write. But the first number one thing that I would say to this is with any scene, literally any scene, doesn't matter what the characters are feeling, how you write it will be entirely dependent on the point of view character. Okay, so if we're seeing this scene through a particular character's eyes, chances are you're focusing on one point of view, even if you are writing in third person. How this character personally sees the situation, reacts to the situation, will determine how they respond to it. So I can't give like one size fits all advice for here's how you write a tragedy scene or a tragic scene, or here's how to write characters reacting to something tragic. Because just like with real life, every person is unique. Every person reacts to a tragedy differently. Our emotional responses are so varied. So that's why it is so important to get to know your character on a very personal level and understand, okay, how do they see the world? How do they react to things? Are they more emotional? Are they outwardly emotional? Or are they more reserved and guarded? This is why I love personality typing so much, because it's a great place to, it's a great, what does Katie always call it? Springboard It's a great springboard for building complex characters. Starting from a place of knowing their personality will really help you to understand how they react emotionally to things happening to them. Some great resources for figuring this out is MBTI, typing, and Enneagram. My personal favorite is Enneagram because I do love MBTI, but I love how Enneagram really dives deep into not just how we behave, but what we believe, and that pairs so nicely with internal conflict. So if you've already figured out your character's internal conflict, but you're not sure about what is their personality, or even if you have some of their personality, but you haven't really solidified how they emotionally respond to events happening to them, the Enneagram is a great place to figure that out. So I will link the video I made on the Enneagram right there. And in that video, I kind of go over every type, and I also give out a cheat sheet for figuring out your character's type. So nail down, what is my character's personality? How do they emotionally respond to things? And that will give you a better perspective on how to write this tragic scene. Another resource that I want to recommend is this book, The Emotion Thesaurus by Angela Ackerman and Becca Puglisi. This is part of a series, actually. They have several books on different writing resource thesaurus style books, and I find this really great to just like have lying on my desk when I'm writing. If I hit a rough spot where I'm writing an emotional scene and I'm not sure how I want my character to physically respond, both internally and externally, this is a very helpful guide. I will link it below this video. Basically, it's like this huge index of emotions, and each emotion is broken into physical signals, internal sensations, mental responses, different categories like that. And it is really helpful for if you hit a spot where you're just not sure how your character should be physically or mentally or emotionally responding to something. But start with your character's personality and really figuring that out, how they emotionally respond to things. And then something like this will be even more helpful because you'll know the ways they show emotion and the ways they definitely do not show emotion. All right, last question is from Pearl. Hello, first I want to thank you for the writing advice and videos. It has been so helpful teaching me to plot, outline, etc., something I never did before watching your videos. Thanks to you, I managed to write the first draft of my 2 novels this year. Thank you so much. Awesome! That is great. I'm so happy my videos have helped you out. Now for the question. I'm in the process of working on a story where instead of chapters, I'm planning on writing it in sections like episodes. When I went to plot it out, I ran into a problem. Each episode follows the 3-act story structure as well as the overall book following the same. It's like a TV series just in book form. What I'm having trouble with is the aha moment of each episode. If my protagonist overcomes her misbelief in episode 1, what's left for the rest of the book? That's not going to work. I guess what my question boils down to is this: how do I continue following the 3-act structure in each episode, giving my protagonist an aha moment of sorts, developing misbelief and internal conflict, and climax, while saving the big aha moment and triumph for the end of the book? Great question. I actually get a lot of questions about writing in episodic format, and it's definitely tricky because it's that balance of keeping internal conflict while still saving something for later. Part 1 of my advice would be to study your favorite shows that do this. If you can get a perspective on episodes of a series that you know and love and see how that structure works. Better yet, if you have like more than one in mind, if you can like cross-examine a couple of them or 3 or 4 and figure out what do they all have in common? What are the patterns? If you need some help doing this, I have a whole video on that, how to study stories, both movies, TV shows, books, all kinds of stories, and I give out some study guides to help you with that. But finding those similarities will help you to inherently know what structure to take, what approach to take with each episode of your story, and how to create a satisfying arc for the whole series while continuing to have internal conflict through every episode. Part 2 of my advice would be this: consider not applying the 3-act story structure so much to each episode as much as a character arc that doesn't necessarily result in an aha moment, okay? So there can still be an arc. And I talk about this in my scene card video, which I will link there if I still have any links left. If not, it will be below this video. In my scene card video, which I made quite recently, I talked about how a scene or sequence, depending on how you want to look at it, has a satisfying arc. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Okay, just like every episode of a satisfying drama has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And towards the midpoint or the middle, you have usually a pivotal moment where tension has been building, the characters have come to a point, a crossroads, really, where they have to make a decision. And the decision that they make towards this midpoint will determine how the arc falls, how the rest of the scene goes, or the rest of the sequence, or the rest of the episode. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a dark moment, aha moment, climactic confrontation, and then resolution. So I would look at those episodes more as sequences. And definitely check out my scene card video, because I know it sounds a little bit like, okay, I don't need a scene card, but what I talk about in that video is the arc of a sequence and giving each sequence in your story a satisfying beginning, middle, and end, so that you have tension building, you have a conflict crossroads, you have characters making decisions and having an effect on how the story goes from there. And this arc can keep happening over and over again. So it doesn't have to end in an aha moment. It could, but it doesn't have to. So think of it less in terms of I have to bring my character on a full journey and bring them to an aha moment, and more in terms of these characters are dealing with their internal conflict. They're going to make decisions. Some of those decisions will be good, some will be bad. It will bring them to new places, and ultimately they are continuing to encounter new conflicts. Okay, so even if they do come to a realization at some point, an aha moment, and they resolve one of their misbeliefs, one of their fatal flaws, they can have another fatal flaw that maybe stems out of that. Maybe in the course of breaking this misbelief, they create a new misbelief. Or maybe they have a negative arc and then it goes positive, and then anything is possible. Anything is possible. So keep an open mind and observe what you love about your favorite TV shows. What are the ingredients across multiple TV shows, preferably multiple genres? What are those ingredients that always work? What is it that always gets you clicking next episode because you just need to know what happens next? Observe those things and see where you can implement that in your own writing. Okay, boom, that's it. Thank you guys so much for your questions. I hope you got something valuable out of my replies. If you would like to ask me a question for this show, you know what to do. Hit the join button below this video or go to patreon.com/Abby Emmons. Get yourself inside the Inner Circle group and post a question there, #AskAbby, and maybe I will answer your question next time. Smash that like button if you liked this video, and be sure to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, because I post writing videos every single Wednesday. I'm doing a live writing session this weekend. I hope you guys will come for that, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, my friend, rock on. Boredom is a side effect of mastery. And in order to achieve a level of mastery with something, you have to be bored. You have to show up and be bored with what you're doing and continue doing it anyway. Like, that, to me, is the unsexy truth of perseverance, is that it